Hi class. Today we are starting our module on the body in a cultural context. You should have all read the article by Kinzel et al., which talked about feminism and self-empowerment when it comes to body image and disordered eating. We are going to discuss that after you take a few minutes to reflect on this word cloud, which talks about disordered eating and body dysmorphia. So I want you all to take a few minutes to process what you see in this word cloud and how it relates to the article that we read. Okay, now that you've had a few minutes to reflect on this word cloud, I want you to pair up with the person next to you, or if there are three people, that's fine as well. And I want you to think about what you learned from the article, anything that stood out, anything that was interesting, or anything that was confusing or difficult to process. So I want you to share, and I'm going to give you all a few minutes, and then we're going to come back as a class and we're going to share what we learned. Okay, now that you've had a few minutes to discuss with the person next to you, I want you to volunteer and share what you thought was interesting about the article or anything else that you reflected upon on this topic. Okay, great. Good insight. Thank you all so much. We are going to move on to our first culture and aspect of body image that we are going to talk about. This was one of my favorite and most interesting topics I learned about in my undergraduate program when I took a class very similar to this one. And this is on the Mauritanian tribe of Africa and their practice of force feeding young women to prepare them for marriage. I'm going to give you a little bit of context, and then we're going to watch a video called Forced to be Fat that talks about these young girls and what they've gone through and their lived experiences. These girls are taken into the desert. Their parents pay for them to be sent to these camps where they are told that they will come back beautiful and ready for marriage. They're fed almost 16,000 calories a day on average of straight oil, gruel, carbs, fats, lard. They are fed like they are livestock, which is how they are treated as property or livestock, and they are fattened up to prepare them for being sold, aka being given off to their future husband. Their parents pay for them and entrust these women who take them out and fatten them up into the desert, into the middle of nowhere. Their parents pay more for stretch marks, and they pay more the larger they come back because they see the larger the woman, the more beautiful she is. And that is the norm that they have within their tribe. We'll talk a little bit more as we go on in this module and as well as later on in the semester about how women are objectified and how they are dehumanized, as well as how being beautiful is different in different cultures and how your beauty and maturity is often seen as being ready for marriage. And if you do not conform to beauty standards, then you must not care about wanting to get married. So this practice of fattening these girls up, sending them to these camps and forcing them to gain so much weight in such a short amount of time really controls their self-image because it is dictated by the male gaze, whereas these women are seen as only attractive if men are attracted to them because of their weight. And so if men are not attracted to them and they do not fit this body image of being a large woman, then it's really hard for them to actually have any agency over their self-image, especially when a lot of them in recent times compare themselves to Western culture where we have this thin ideal. They're often teased and mocked for not being large enough, which we see in cultures all over the world. Even here in the United States, women, especially women, are mocked for not conforming to a specific set of beauty, image, and physical appearance standards. These women also use drugs, not to lose weight as we see in some cultures, but to gain weight. This is also something we'll talk about, is the enslavement of women and confining them to the home through physical body modification. We'll talk about foot binding, which is a way of not allowing women to be able to walk. It's a sign of wealth, which is something we see here, as the ability to have enough food to eat makes a larger woman, and the larger the woman is, that is a nonverbal cue that she is wealthy, that her family is wealthy, and then therefore when she gets married, that her husband is wealthy because he can afford for her to stay home, not have to work, and for her to have enough food. But through this, the woman is confined to the home because she is physically unable to get up and walk around, because the women are not allowed, as you see in the bottom, they're not allowed to have any kind of physical activity, and they are so large, they're very unhealthy, and so they physically cannot walk around. And then I also want you to see in this video about the girls who are rebelling against this, who are starting gyms, and they are trying to create a healthier lifestyle for themselves, as well as for other young women who do not want to participate in this, to give them autonomy over their bodies and the ability to not have to get married as a teenager and get fattened up at these camps. So let's watch this. I want you to keep an open mind. If you feel uncomfortable as you watch this, please feel free to step out of the room, but I highly suggest and encourage you to stay and watch this video, even if it feels difficult or uncomfortable. And I want you to keep an open mind, because not all cultures are the same, and there are reasons for everything that people do. So we want to keep an open mind so that we can understand this. Okay, now that we watched the video, we are going to do an activity. I know everyone loves activities so much. I do. So I want you to get into groups of 4 people, and each person in the group is going to choose a hat. So the first person in the group, how does this make you feel? I want you to dig deep and think about how this video affected you, your emotions and feelings, what came to mind, what bubbled up to the surface as you watched this video. Please be very open and honest as you think about this. And then the next person, I want you to have this question: what are the facts? So this is not about your opinion or your feelings. This is objective about what are the actual facts in this video, what we saw about this tribe and about the Mauritanian force feeding practice. The third person will do what are some possible strategies? What are some possible strategies for, you can think of anything you want, but what are some possible strategies for girls who do not want to go to these camps? What are some possible strategies for girls who have been sent to these camps and who want to get physically healthy? What are some of these strategies for girls who have gotten out and who do not fit into their tribe and their culture anymore? What are some possible strategies for any of these young women? And then the fourth person, why do they do this? So try not to be judgmental, try to, as I will keep saying throughout this class, please keep an open mind. Why do they do this? Why do you think the parents send them here? Why do you think these older women are willing to go to the desert and do this to these girls? Why do they want to do these to these girls? Why do some young women want to be there? Why do some young women want to leave and not conform? Think about this. So I'll give you a few minutes to think about your question and then discuss it as a group, and then we will come back and share. Okay, so I want at least 1, maybe 2 people from each group to share, and we will have a different question from each group. And we'll start with this group over here, and then we will go through, and we want everyone to be able to share as much as possible what you all thought about this video. Great, okay, well, thank you all so much for sharing. That was a really good discussion. Okay, so now we are going to move on to cultural beauty ideals. I want you all to take a look at all of these images and just think about what comes to mind when you see these images. Do you think that they are very abstract and different from what we know in the Western world within our culture? What do you think when you see these? Okay. So many people might think that these images that are portrayed of different cultures and tribes and their beauty ideals are very far off from what we see in the Western world and our modern world. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this, and then we're going to see how this compares within our society. First, we have lip plating in the top left corner. You can see many ancient cultures dating back to 8700 BC have engaged in this practice for women to become beautiful through the elongation of the lower lip, a sense of inner power and self-esteem building for these women. Men have also done this as well. It marks a journey from child to adulthood, maturing to wife and being ready for marriage. That's something that we'll see as a pattern that will keep coming up as beauty and maturity and being ready to be a wife. And then we have neck elongation in Myanmar. It starts at the age of 5. It actually just compresses the collarbone down and into the rib cage. It doesn't lengthen the neck, but it is supposed to give the illusion of lengthening the neck. There are also rumors, people have said that this practice was to prevent tigers attacking the jugular of these women to keep them safe, so that prevented tigers from being able to attack and kill them. But it's mostly for a beauty ideal practice. And then we have on the right, teeth shaving. This is seen as a practice everywhere from Mexico to China to Sudan to the ancient Mayans. These are all practices that we've seen in different tribes, a sign of being wealthy and a sign of beauty and upper class and desirability. And then on the bottom in the middle, we have ear elongation. This picture comes from a Brazilian tribe, often in men when they enter adulthood, that shows they're able to hunt and participate in different ceremonies. Then we have scarification on the left. This is mostly seen in African tribes and beautifies both men and women. It's a sign of beauty ideal for both men and women. It denotes status, male war heroes, protectors, women's ability and willingness to procreate. So many of these beauty ideals we will see actually are used as nonverbal communication to denote people's status, to denote their willingness to do things, and whether or not they are at the age for marriage, as well as whether or not they are a child or an adult. And then we have in the lower left, this is a tribe from India. It's said that they had the most beautiful women in the land, and they were forced to make their women look unattractive because other tribes would come in and try to kidnap or rape or attack their women and steal them for their own tribe. So they wanted to make their women look ugly so that they would not be stolen by other tribes. Okay, now that we've talked a little bit about this, does anyone think there are any similarities to our own culture in the United States, in our modern society, in the Western world? Can anyone think of any similarities? Anything that comes off the top of your head, or do you think that this is completely different and not something we see? Okay. So many of you said that this was very different from what we see, and it's actually not that far off. We have modern versions of these cultural body modifications portrayed in different ways. We had the Kylie Lip Challenge a few years ago where people wanted to enlarge their lips. People engage in Botox and fillers, plastic surgery, different types of illusions, such as Audrey Hepburn is an example of an illusion of elongation of the neck. And on the right, we have teeth shaving, where people shave their teeth down to get veneers as a sign